What would you do if your peaceful retirement was brutally interrupted? Charles Sherman Ross, once a titan of the greeting card industry, had stepped away from the corporate world and was basking in the serenity of his golden years. His days were filled with leisure, punctuated only by the occasional consultation that kept him tethered to his former life. But this tranquility was shattered one September night in 1937. Ross and his former secretary, Miss Florence Freyhage, found themselves on a drive towards Chicago. A vehicle with piercingly bright headlights began to tail them. Ross, sensing danger, pulled over to let the vehicle pass. Instead, it aggressively blocked their path. The man who disembarked was John Henry Seidland, a figure whose name would soon be synonymous with treachery and crime. Brandishing a revolver, Seidland approached Ross's car. With a tap on the window, he signaled Ross to unlock the door. Seidland, with a swift motion, pulled Ross out of his car and forced him into the kidnapper's vehicle. With Ross now captive, the criminals quickly departed the scene. Their destination? A secluded hideout nestled deep in the woods near Emily, Minnesota. This was no ordinary hideaway. It was a rudimentary dugout, a chilling testament to the calculated nature of their crime. The cold, forbidding space was the stark backdrop to the grim days that followed for Ross. Under the watchful eyes of his captors, Ross was made to pen a ransom note. The message was chillingly clear. Ross, forced to inflate his net worth to $100,000, was to be traded for a hefty $50,000 ransom. The man behind this elaborate scheme, Seidland, was not just a common criminal. His cunning mind was orchestrating a secretive transaction, one that would take more than just money to resolve. The letter, intended to initiate a secretive and complex transaction, was sent to Harvey S. Brackett, a former business associate, and one of the few people Ross trusted. As the FBI entered the case, the investigation quickly escalated into one of the most extensive manhunts of the era. The legendary J. Edgar Hoover, a man who needs no introduction, took the helm. Hoover and his team of skilled agents employed the latest scientific methods, transforming the search for Ross into a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Hoover's team worked tirelessly, sifting through clues and following leads, but the kidnappers proved to be no ordinary criminals. Seidland and Gray, masters of deception, wove a complex web of evasion that kept them one step ahead of the law. They moved Ross from place to place across the wooded areas of Minnesota and Wisconsin, their tracks as elusive as shadows in the night. The situation grew increasingly urgent with each passing day. Ross's life hung in the balance. The clever tactics employed by Seidland and Gray, their constant relocation of Ross, and their ability to cover their tracks all amplified the stakes. The urgency of the situation was compounded by the clever tactics employed by Seidland and Gray, who frequently moved Ross to different locations, covering their tracks and staying one step ahead of law enforcement. What happens when a meticulously planned crime unravels? When a perfect strategy crumbles under the weight of greed and desperation? This is the story of a ransom pickup gone horribly wrong. In the bleak autumn of October 10th, a motorcycle rider unknowingly became a pawn in a sinister plot. He delivered a ransom on a desolate road, as per the instructions of the kidnappers. But what followed was far from the smooth resolution the criminals had envisioned. The perpetrators, Seidland and Gray, found themselves locked in a violent struggle over the division of the spoils. In the ensuing chaos, Seidland gunned down Gray. Realizing that the kidnapped Ross could identify him, Seidland made the chilling choice to eliminate him as well. Seidland's subsequent flight from justice was as desperate as it was reckless. He buried Ross and Gray in a makeshift grave in the woods and fled with the ransom money. A spending spree across the country took him from Nebraska to Washington and then down to California. In Los Angeles, Seidland's downfall was precipitated by his reckless spending. FBI agents, with their vigilant and well-coordinated efforts, traced the serial numbers of the ransom bills he squandered. A trap was set at the Santa Anita racetrack, where Seidland was caught red-handed while trying to place a bet with the marked bills. Under the pressure of relentless interrogation, Seidland confessed to the kidnapping and murders. He provided detailed accounts of his actions, leading the FBI to the grim resting place of Ross and Gray. The trial that followed was swift and conclusive, resulting in a death sentence by electrocution. The story of the Charles Ross kidnapping case is not merely a tale of crime and punishment. It is a stark reminder of the grim realities of criminality and the ever-evolving capabilities of law enforcement. It stands as a testament to the relentless pursuit of justice that lurks in the shadows, ready to bring criminals like Seidland to account.